Oh, the wonderful world of ramen noodles. So we're going to take a look at upcycling these awesome little instant noodles, and we're going to go through some of the ingredients starting our video. So we have leftover tandoori chicken from an Indian restaurant, and we're going to also use some bok choy, which is available at the commissary or Tesco. We have some red pepper, which is going to be small diced, and we'll put it in there later. And we also are going to include some spring onion, also called green onion. We are looking at a couple eggs, which are going to be included on top, fried up separately. And we're going to use some toasted sesame oil. Olive oil would be okay too, or vegetable oil, but toasted sesame makes it yummier. We have some sesame seeds. That's a sesame seed grinder, and it is awesome. My friend got it for me from Japan. And our friend salt and pepper. That's a salt hog, and it is awesome. It's made here in the UK, and it makes an awesome present for a mom or dad when you are PCSing or just at Christmas time. I would encourage it. I can give you the info if you want it later. So we're going to start off. We're going to clean up our station, wipe it down, get it scrubbed, and get it and sanitize it. Slow motion spritzing. Very cool, right? And so we're going to set up our cutting board after that. We're going to pull out our tandoori chicken, and we're going to go ahead and get it out the package. And we're going to get it set up so that we can go ahead and start pulling it. We're going to, you'll notice some excess of the fat that renders from the tandoori chicken. That's that glossy stuff on top. And this is a great way to use our leftovers. I noticed that my nails are showing some white at the ends, so I need to get those suckers trimmed. So I went and got them trimmed before I started, so I wouldn't get chicken all underneath as well as anything else in my food. I'm going to go ahead and pull through this chicken. It's really important that we pull through chicken in order to not have any bones and any fragments. Oh, there's a little hand. That little hand is my daughter helping me take pictures as I've got my hands all in some chicken. And I'm going through and I'm using the leg and thigh, but I'm not going to actually need all this chicken because I pulled a ton of it off just one section. So I'm going to keep going through and double checking that I don't have any fragments, any tendons. Oh, there's one. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that little sucker. There's another one. I'm going to get rid of that as well. There's a little crunchy bit that may not be good, and there's still a lot of chicken left over. So this is a great way to utilize leftovers. I ended up making a chicken salad out of that, the rest of that too. I'm going to go ahead and clean up my station once again, slow motion spritzing and sanitizing it because we're moving on to vegetables now. So I got my cutting board set up, and I pull out my bok choy, and I'm going to make sure that I get that nice and rinsed. I'm going to pat those leaves dry in order to get some excess moisture off of them and any residual dirt. Got my hands in the claw motion. I'm going to peel that back. That jug next to me is holding the camera as I'm going through and doing this. And I'm going to go ahead and cut those into about 1/4 inch strips, which will match my small dice. So I'm going to leave those as strips because it'll be a little bit easier to eat with the noodle. Notice as I'm placing my knife down, I got the blade away from me. I got my red pepper now. I'm going to take off the top, and then I'm going to take off the bottom. And then I'm going to cut a slit down the side so that I can get my knife in there. And then I'm going to place my knife inside, and I'm going to cut out those white ribs that hold the center portion carefully and remove any excess whites because that stuff is bitter. And then I'm going to cut it up into manageable sections, and then I'm going to have my finger peeled back and do that 1/4 inch bâtonnet cut clear from the back side of my knife, and then I'm going to line it up and do the small dice. Now I didn't keep these into strips because they're a little bit thicker And so this will, and actually these bits will get caught up into the noodles. So it's not nearly as bad to keep them as strips, and it'll almost be too cumbersome if they were the batanes. Clear up my station and get all my stuff off my cutting board. Again, the knife blade is pointed away from me as I set it down. Ooh, a little bit. And we're going to use that top portion of our pepper too. Now, I'm pretty sure when I did this, I didn't have to use all this red pepper. So what I did is I just went ahead and processed it all and then put any that I didn't want to use as extra into a Tupperware container so I could use it for tacos or anything else. Now we're going to move on to our spring onion. And remember, we don't have to clean our board if it's all the same recipe in two. And we're going to small dice those, 1/4 inch cut too. And I'm going to use almost all of it, making sure that I clear up my station as well. So I'm basically setting up my mise en place. I'm going to take a look at my ramen, look at the instructions, take a look at the nutritional content, kind of see how much sodium's going into this, noticing what kind of ingredients are in there, noticing that there is some monosodium glutamate, MSG, so I may not use all the packets, or I know that I won't use all the packets in there. Also check out the directions, see what's being used. So I'm using water. I could substitute the water and put in stock, and I've actually done that, and it makes it even more flavorful. Stock or broth would work. And then, of course, I'm going to read the story about how this came about, and basically understanding that this is an instant version of a lovely favorite. So I'm going to just, I'm not super familiar with ramen, so I'm checking out the package, noticing, oh, I got a little surprise in here. There's our little packet of MSG and salt and everything else. And then I'm going to double check that my pan will fit the amount of water that's necessary, just to make sure. And of course that it does. And adding in some more. Again, broth or stock works a good addition to bump up that flavor. I'm sorry about the glare. I kind of try and work with it as I'm going through. So I'm going to get my wok set up, and I'm going to go ahead and put in my toasted sesame oil. And then I'm going to begin sauteing my spring onion. And to get that flavor into the pan, and then I'm going to chuck in here in a little bit the red pepper, adding a little bit of salt as we go along. I don't want to go crazy because we're, of course, got some in that flavor packet. And we stream close up. And then there goes my red pepper. I'm going to get that in and get those two sauteing now. So I'm kind of building on flavors, and I'm staging kind of how I want that. I want a little more color on my onion than I do on my red pepper, because I kind of like my red pepper being a bit crunchy in a lot of my dishes, so almost kind of al dente or firm to the bite. And again, that jug is helping me hold my camera as I'm going through and flipping my pan. And another tiny pinch of salt as we're going along. And there's my bok choy. I'm going to go ahead and dump that in the pan. And it's thinner. And again, I like it to be a little bit crunchy too. And it's green, so we don't want to cook it nearly as long. I know that our spring onion is a little green, but the cabbage is greener. And so I'm going to get all my flavors kind of developing and getting it sauteed. Now, you're wondering, hey, what happened to that chicken? It's actually gone into the oven, and it's at 180, and it is reheating in there with the lid on, or I'm sorry, with the lid off, in order to just get it warmed up as I'm going through and sauteing. So I noticed my pan was dry, so I added a little bit of olive oil in there too. So you don't have to, sesame oil is pretty strong. And then I go in with a little bit of pepper. And now we're going to add in our water. And what the water is going to do is it's actually going to clean up and grab a lot of the flavor that's at the bottom of the pan. That's called fond. That builds and develops some of the browning bits on the bottom. And so it's going to actually help clean up our wok as we're working too. And so now I'm going to bring this up. Notice I took up my vegetables before I added in the water too. And so I'm going to use up that oil in there to help keep my noodles separate. I'm going to add in one of the ramen pockets so that the flavor kind of works its way into the noodle. And then I'm going to add another one to finish the noodles at the end. And I'm going to get that all stirred up. I'm going to scrape kind of the bottom, get all that fond up off the bottom. And again, I apologize. I got super intense light over my stovetop. And then before I toss in my noodles, I want to give it a taste, make sure that, I do need a little bit more salt. So I'm going to chuck that in. And again, I'm going to add some more with another bit of flavoring. So I don't want to go too, I just want small increments of that. And what we're going to see is this basically coming to a boil, which is what needs to happen before you place your noodles in. And there it is, with the magic of time lapse. So I have these two long kind of like chopsticks that my friend gave me for Christmas, who lives in Japan, and kind of like the sesame grinder that I showed you at the beginning. So that's what I'm using here. And I was told that they use these in every part of their cooking. So I'm giving it a try out and seeing how I like using them as opposed to a spatula. And for ramen, they actually work really nicely, getting the noodles separated and kind of working with them without damaging or breaking them all up. There's that second edition of our seasoning packet. I had 3 packets of ramen going in there. I only used 2 packets. And here we go, pulling out the tandoori chicken. We're going to get that out of the oven. And again, we're just reheating it. And we're going to finish reheating it and getting it kind of incorporated in with our dish in just a bit. And then we're going to top it off with our vegetables. And kind of get it all worked out. And there it is. We're going to get our eggs in now, and remember, we're going to just fry these up. So we're going to put them into a pan and get them nice and crispy, and then put a lid over top so the yolk gets cooked. And we're looking about 4 minutes at most. So they go into a nice hot pan. And then I want to now double check, get all my flavors worked in there, and I do need another touch of salt because I didn't use that 3rd packet. So again, I'm trying to reduce some of the other stuff. I got it all bowled up. I will say plating ramen is a messy affair, so be careful. And there's that sesame grinder again. I highly encourage grabbing one of those if you find one. This is probably from the pound store in Japan. And then I just grate that right on top and then toss the fried egg on top. Yummy, delicious, wonderful, upcycled ramen noodles. I highly encourage you, give it a go.